Um, Good afternoon and welcome to this meeting of the Council's Cabinet. I need to tell you there's going to be webcast, so be careful out there. Everything you say and look like will be taken down and maybe used in evidence against you, so just be careful. I've got to bring to your attention some housekeeping matters as well. There's no expected fire alarm testing today, so if you do hear a bell, please follow the fire and emergency procedures that we follow here in the Council House. Also, when you use your microphone, can you make sure it's switched off when you're not using it? And make sure your mobile devices are switched to silent as well. Is that okay? Could I also, before we start the meeting proper, welcome Harry, Oscar and Darcy, who are here on work experience. There's no better place to do work experience than this council, let me tell you. We'll give you a thorough grounding into this world of work that we're in. And we hope you enjoy your time with us this week, and I'm sure it'll be rewarding. So I'm going to start now with some apologies. As you can see, the Cabinet is short, but not incapable. We've got all the capable people here. But we have got apologies from Jemima, who's not well, and Councillor Mark Lowry and Councillor Sally Hayden, who are both on holiday and may be unwell later, depending on how that holiday is going. So we now go to declaration of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest for items on the agenda? No? Okay, that's brilliant. I'm moving to item 3 on the agenda then. That's the minutes of the previous meeting. Nobody's advised us of any corrections. So can I propose that the minutes that of the meeting we had on the 12th of June are signed as a correct record? All agreed? Thank you. I'm going to move to item 4 on the agenda. This is questions from the public. You okay? You okay? So the first question is from Mr. Richard Poltridge to me. Is Mr. Poltridge here?
He's not here today, Leader.
Okay. Well, would you mind if I read out the question? Is that all right? Shall I read out the answer as well? Okay, then I'll be brief. Mr. Poltridge says, when I was in business, I would catch the Plymouth flight to Heathrow on a monthly basis, and I believe PCC underestimates the importance of business to our ocean city. I would like to know if the council have any intention of progressing the opening of Plymouth Airport. So I have a detailed response to Mr. Poltridge. Would you like me to read that? I'll read that then. It was a huge disappointment when Sutton Harbour Group closed the airport in 2011. No one in the city wanted it to close, least of all me. As leader of the Labour administration, we did everything we could at that time to support the creation of a new airline, Air South West. Would you remember when Bryman Airways and BA left Plymouth with no air connectivity? Had we not done so, the airport would have closed at that point. So some years later, in 2011, when the Conservative administration accepted the closure notice from Sutton Harbour, I, for one, would have done more to keep the airport open, but we were in opposition at that time. Since the airport closed, Sutton Harbour Group, who have a lease of the site, announced their intentions to develop the site for housing, something we have strongly resisted. The council owns the freehold of the site, but it currently has limited control over the site because of Sutton Harbour's lease. So the current situation has been going on long enough, and I've instructed council officers to do everything possible to see if we can acquire that lease, which would give the council control over what happens to the site. These negotiations are ongoing. If we're able to acquire the lease, this would allow the council to regain control of the site so we can make our own decisions about its future. It should be the council making these decisions on such an important site for the benefit of the public, not private property developers. I hope that we'll be able to provide further updates on these discussions soon. Then there's another question, which is again to myself, from Mr. Tim Forth. Ironically also on the airport. As part of the lease agreement with Sutton Harbour Group, the airport was to be maintained at the functional level, although clearly it has not. What is the estimated cost to undo Sutton Harbour Group's neglect of Plymouth City Airport? So I'm going to read the response that I would have said had Mr. Forth been here. The airport lease places various obligations on Sutton Harbour Group to maintain the infrastructure of the site, as well as setting out how the airport land is to be dealt with when the airport is not viable. I can take the opportunity now to reassure you that the council will be seeking to assert its full rights under the lease. We have recently commissioned a consultant to undertake an inspection of the site, and they have advised us of the condition of the various buildings within the airport demise. However, the costs of improving the buildings and reinstating the equipment necessary to support aviation would vary significantly depending on the type of aviation proposed, i.e. general aviation or commercial flights. And what is clear to us, this council administration, is that the issue, again, has gone on for too long since Sutton Harbour closed the airport under the Conservative administration in 2011. It is the council that should be determining the strategic future of this site, and I have therefore instructed council officers to do everything in our powers to acquire the lease and get control of the airport. It is only then that the future of the site can be properly considered. So that's two questions to me, and I believe there is a third question, and this is to Councillor Coker from the Honorary Alderman George Wheeler. Shall I read the question and then you can give the answer? Marvellous. So, the question from Alderman Wheeler to you is, thank you for your reply to my question at the last council meeting. Your reply said that construction of the transport improvements in St Budo is scheduled to commence from September 2023. Can you tell me when the work is scheduled to finish with the shelters reinstalled, please?
All right, thank you to the Honourable Alderman George Wheeler for your question. Unfortunately, we are currently unable to provide the information that you have requested, as we have not yet been able to finalise the programme's completion. In order to finalise the programme, we require detailed estimates and final design from the utility companies. These have not yet been received. Once the dates are finalised, installation of the replacement bus shelters will be programmed to tie in with these works. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Coker. Next item on the agenda is Chair's urgent business. I don't have any urgent business, do I? Do I? No? In which case, I need to go on to item 6, which is leaders' announcements. Now, it's got 10 minutes for this, so I'm going to do speed reading, because there's quite a few. I'm going to start, I think, with an announcement about Armada Way, if that's okay. So the council meeting on the 27th of March agreed a recommendation to ask the Cabinet to set up an independent review into the handling of Armada Way redevelopment. In common with a number of issues that we're having to deal with at the moment, I hardly need to point out that it was a Conservative Cabinet with a Conservative leader that presided over this reputation-shredding decision. Within days of being elected as Plymouth's new administration, we have been dealing with putting right the mess that we and those who use our city centre have inherited. I can formally confirm that we are committed to establishing an independent review into the Armada Way decision. I've asked officers to prepare a draft terms of reference for such a review for my Cabinet to consider, but I can confirm in advance of that the review will be truly independent and will have an independent and senior chair. It will look in detail at the decision-making process that took place, both in terms of legality and good governance. It will examine how well the council engaged with stakeholders through the process and the extent to which feedback was incorporated into the plans. And it will examine the impact of the project on the local environment. Finally, it will set out the financial implications of what has happened, including the cost directly to the council. So regardless of the fact that this was a Conservative decision and took place on the Conservatives' watch, there will be lessons for everyone to learn. And I want to make sure that we learn them. So the new corporate plan is very clear about our values, and this review will demonstrate our commitment to delivering against them. My first priority is to consult on a new scheme that and get that in train and to continue to clear up Armada Way, but I will make sure that the review commences before the end of the year and that it will be presented to full council upon its completion. And I'll also be happy to give regular updates on our progress. Okay, so that's Armada Way. I've just got a few other bits and pieces which are quite thrilling. So it's not often that anyone, apart from local government anoraks, get excited about council's forward plan of key decisions. But on this occasion, I actually invite you to actively seek it out because it contains some big excitement. It might just give the uninitiated an insight into some major scale investment and announcements coming your way very soon indeed, covering green investment, events, major developments and lots more. So look, I'm not going to spoil the surprise, so I'll give you an insight on just two of the announcements we made last week in the list of what's coming. So first is we're going to be building factories and offices once again. Lot might not be excited by this, but I am. I really am. Not only are we going to do it, we're going to do it in our Freeport. So I might also mention this will be the first direct development that has been approved since we were last in power. When we approved the Plymouth International scheme, the Conservatives brought nothing new forward, but just opened our stuff. I've given the go-ahead for council officers to bring forward two business cases for £15.6 million investment in two sites. The first is a £6.5 million investment in a further phase of the Oceans Gate development, and this will deliver about 1,772 square metres of high quality, very lettable space for manufacturing and synthetic testing. That'll create, we reckon, 49 jobs. The second is a £9.1 million investment in industrial units at Langage Business Park, which will deliver 5,615 square metres of flexible, high-quality, sustainable workspace split across 4 different units at Beaumont Way and create 18 jobs. One of our key priorities is driving green investment, right? Jobs and skills in that field as well. Our Freeport will do exactly that. And I'm determined to make sure it delivers for workers as well as investors. So we're putting our money where our mouth is and bringing forward job creation schemes. Our ambition is that both these developments will be net zero. So that'll be quite significant. I want to mention again our commitment to bringing forward Plymouth as a net zero port. and ensuring that we benefit from the massive green investments such as the Celtic Array. Last week, I approved the tender documents to find a specialist consultant to work with us to develop the city's first ports strategy. This work has been funded by the very small Shared Prosperity Fund, and we hope to be underway by the autumn. For the first time, we'll look at the economic contribution all our 4 ports make: Catwater, Sutton Harbour, Millbay and Devonport. We will look in detail at the road to net zero and identify the large-scale infrastructure investments required to ensure that our ports remain relevant into the 21st century. And this will also allow us to make the case to government for really large-scale green investment. I'll keep you posted on that. Now, you might have heard that Jemima's not well, so she's not here today, and I've got the pleasure of deputising for her just as my cough kicks in. Oh, yeah. So, Jemima was going to tell you about the box Summer of Colour and Light. There were 320 people at the launch event, with the President of the Royal Academy, Rebecca Salter, in attendance. It's had 20,000 visitors in the first 2 weeks. Retail took nearly $5,000 in the first week. Reynolds' book was the bestseller. And it's been a citywide marketing campaign with lots of media interest. The season was featured on Spotlight, BBC Sounds, BBC Radio Devon. It's also one of the Guardian's must-see exhibitions, one of Time Out's 12 best exhibitions of the summer, and one of Arts Fund's top 10 exhibitions for July. It is fantastic, and it's truly made in Plymouth. So it will be really exciting for everyone, I think, to see that. It's a moment of great pride. Want to plug the Bazaar, superb first international food market at the Box, organised in partnership with the brilliant Diversity Business Incubator. And a joy to see Tavistock Place come alive in the manner which we had intended. The market will happen on the last Saturday of each month, with the next market being on the 29th of July. Only a couple of days after the by-elections. Mission Mammoth, I'm going to let you do that one. And then I wanted to mention Armed Forces Day, which I think, we wouldn't need the Trade Description Act to saying ours was fantastic. I think I'm going to go further. Outshone the national one again. Plymouth is the place for these events, right? Thousands of people turned out to see it. It was brilliant. And that was after a week-long series of events as well. And it really does give the people of Plymouth an opportunity to show their support for our armed services, and to thank the families and the support that is around our military, and thank them for the work that they do. And the sunshine for the Rehab Triathlon, where there were 200 surface personnel on recovery duties and veterans to take part in Tyneside on the Hoe. And then Armed Forces Day itself, we reckon 50,000 came to that, which is incredible. Displays, parades, fly past demonstrations, entertainment and live music. And we had the Red Arrows. They did come. They were very quick. If you blinked, you missed them, but they were there. And but it was fantastic. We have to congratulate, of course, Whitey Court Primary, who retained their winning title of the Junior Field Gun Tournament winners, and that was run throughout the day. It was fantastic. Hundreds of families there, mums and dads cheering their children on. It was brilliant. And Andrew Burns, the Vice Admiral, Fleet Commander of the Royal Navy, was there to present, and that's fantastic too. So many people have said it's the best one ever, which is no challenge, is it, to people who've got to organise next year's. But as I say, better than Falmouth. Who knew? And thank you to the key sponsors, Babcock, ACOM and the Royal British Legion, who made that event come alive. Last but not least, I just want to say a big thank you to Brittany Ferries, who have partnered with us on the British Firework Championships. There's absolutely amazing because it's Brittany Ferry's 50th birthday. Started out bringing, was it broccoli to the masses? Cauliflowers. I knew it was a brassica or something. Cauliflowers. But look where they are now. And it's fantastic. So for them to be sponsoring this in this year is really spectacular. So I just want to thank them for doing that and remind you that there will be 2 fantastic nights of fireworks on Plymouth Hoe with commentary as well. So that'll make it even more exciting. It's the best free show on earth. Okay, I'm going to move on now and ask if any members of the cabinet would like to bring us up to date with their stuff. Where shall I go? Shall I go to Mark? I'll go to Mark. I'll go down the. Mark.
Thank you, Chair. I just thought today that I would update Cabinet on our pledge to fill in more road defects. And I just thought it would be interesting. I was going to give you a little bit of background. In the 2 years before we took over, 5,192 defects on our road network were treated. This year, so far, for the first 2 months of our administration, 1,776 defects have been filled in 2 months. And if you break that down, the new velocity machine that people have probably, or the 2 now, velocity machines, and that's quite a mouthful to say, which are out on our network now. One has been here for 6 weeks, the other 2, and those machines together have done 1,213 defects on the road, and our partner contractor, South West Highways, has filled in a further 563. So if you compare where we are after 2 months with where we were in the last 2 years, you can see the substantial difference that we're making. And I just thought also it would be interesting to tell Cabinet that I attended an LCRIG, which is a local council's innovation road network meeting up in Lincoln last week. And the video that we did showing this machine and what it does, actually all of the suppliers were coming up to me asking me because they'd seen the video that we were doing. So I think we're well on our way, Chair, to absolutely showing that the commitment that we made before the May election, that we would take seriously the defects on our road. I'm really proud of what we've done in just 8 weeks, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, spectacular, Mark. It really is. Hopefully you've got more good news in that space to fill us in on in a couple of weeks' time, I think. Yeah, I tried it. I stumbled very much. I tripped over something there, didn't I? But nevertheless, I had to go. The thing is, this is a big priority for the local community. So it's so pleasing to hear the progress that has been made so quickly. And that sounds like, enormous strides in very short space of time. So congratulations to you and the team. We look forward to more good news in due course. Sudan, did you want to raise anything?
I would. A couple of things. The first thing I want to talk about is the cost of living plan. So in my absence last month, when I missed Cabinet, I know we launched the fact that we're going to do a cost of living plan within the first 100 days of us coming into office. So I've got until really the middle of August to get this out into the public. But although it's the City Council who's pulling the plan together, I'm really keen to make sure that it is a citywide plan, because everybody has to do their part. So on July the 25th, we're having a cost of living type workshop. So we're trying to get all the normal people who work in the arena of supporting people, but anybody else as well who feels that they might be able to contribute. There might be businesses out there, banks out there, who can help people alleviate some of the issues that we're seeing with the cost of living. And it needs to be robust. There are going to be things coming out in the next couple of weeks about what families and people can do over the summer holidays that will be free. But actually the cost of living plan also has got to address what's going to happen in the future. Just a couple of things. I went to the Citizens Advice Bureau the other day, and this is why this cost of living plan has to be robust. The number of people who are significantly impacted by the cost of living is increasing. And for the first time, it's actually an increase in the working population who are seeking advice and support from the Citizens Advice Bureau about how they can manage their energy debt. They want energy advice. They're looking to see where they can get charitable support, things from like food banks, and it's increasing. You know, just last year, just on the CAB figures, over 5,220 people from Plymouth actually asked for support from the Citizens Advice Bureau, and 64% of that was linked to their cost of living issues. And online, and this was staggering, 167,000 people access their website to look at the support that can be offered to people who are struggling. So this is really is a growing mountain of a crisis that is heading towards us. So this cost of living workshop is really, really important that we get people there. So for people who are listening, and we'll put it out again and we'll advertise it more. If anybody out there would like to come to this cost of living workshop, don't wait to be invited. Let us know. We'll send you an invite and you'll come along, because the more people who can come along to offer support and help, the better, because this covers everybody across the city. So that's the first thing, and that's a really important thing. The second thing actually isn't anything to do with the council, it's actually to do with Catwater Harbour. And the fact we are going to have a Spanish galleon in our waters for the first week of August. And I just want to put that out there, because it's not often you can say that we're going to welcome a Spanish galleon into Plymouth, is it? It's a few years probably since we last had a Spanish Armada and a big galleon sailing into the Plymouth Sound. But I'm putting it out there because we're very proud of our maritime history. And, you know, this ship doesn't call in to many ports. So for it to be coming to Plymouth in August, I think is a great thing for us to look back at our history and also look how far we've come as a city. And then the final announcements, which I wasn't going to announce, but Wimbledon's on. So I do think I need to let people know that Devonport Park, Hartley Park and Topsfield Park have all been refurbished, and we've got lovely brand new tennis courts there, all waiting to be used on, and they can book in a similar way to Central Park, and I think it's great. And moving forward, the Lawn Tennis Association is also going to do and start delivering a range of lots of activity and free access to the courts and teaching how our kids can play tennis in that bid to get more people actively involved in the sport. And that's my final announcement.
Well, thank you very much indeed. You sure it's not too soon with that Spanish galleon? It's been 500 years, so it's all right.
It'll be lovely.
It's okay.
I'm hoping the Lord Mayor will go on and visit actually, because I mean, I think if
Yeah,
you get a
that'd be a good
picture of the
idea.
Lord Mayor going onto a Spanish galleon with that lovely black tricorn hat, I think that'd be quite an amazing feat.
I think you're right. You should know. Chris, have you got anything for us?
Thank you, Leader. And you might have thought I've been strangely quiet in these updates at recent meetings, and I'm about to rectify that with 7 announcements, and I'll try to get through them all as quickly as possible. Leader, because we've asked and listened, we've been told time and again by people in Plymouth that they're fed up of having to repeat their story when getting in touch with services that are there to help with homelessness, drug and alcohol use, mental health and domestic abuse. They're annoyed at going through multiple assessments that only seem to be concerned with asking, what's wrong with you? They're frustrated at being put on long waiting lists, and only then if they meet some criteria or threshold for help. and they're confused by the experience being pushed from one service to another, and they're despairing that after going through all of that, they're offered something that just isn't right for them. This experience is compounded for people whose situation is not straightforward, people who live complex lives infused by trauma and often impacted by multiple issues of homelessness, drug and alcohol use, mental health, being in prison or contact with the police, domestic abuse and violence. An array of issues that don't fit neatly into the way services are designed to deal with their bit. Since 2021, we've been part of the National Changing Futures programme and have received £2.1 million from government and the National Lottery to support work for 3 years. And this was due to finish at the end of March. I'm really pleased that we'll be continuing to March 2025 thanks to a further £690,000 worth of funding. Changing Futures isn't a service. It's a support for frontline organisations and networks to improve the way they work. Organisations and networks such as the Plymouth Alliance that are working directly with people to help them change the way things work for people. It's not here to make quick fixes, but it's instead to working for the longer term and with a trauma-informed prevention focus. So you might say, so what? The sort of impact it's having is that the women involved in on-street prostitution or other abusive situations are getting intensive support and personalised budgets from the Trevi Spark project to take steps to a safer and better life. The men who have perpetrated domestic abuse being supported through a HIMSA's behaviour change programme to stop causing future harm, as well as the young people who are starting to display harmful behaviours and who can now get the same level of support, early prevention. The women rebuilding their lives after substance misuse, homelessness and contact with the criminal justice system, getting connected with the online world with new laptops and mobile phones as they start their journey back into the world of work through the Gifted Women programme. The young people being supported to share their story of what it's like when they move from being supported by children's services to adult services, so we can make this transition between services better. The people leaving prison who will soon get targeted support from someone who's experienced what they've experienced, helping them not to fall through the gaps and risk reoffending or being returned to prison. Leader, this is fundamentally important work as we deal with people with complex lives, and I'd like to say a very big thank you to the government and to the National Lottery Fund for giving us another year of this essential work. Leader, I'd like to move on to a very specific piece of support that I'd like to announce today. And I'm pleased that we have been able to work with Young Devon to bring forward new provision of supported accommodation for vulnerable young homeless people. We'll be making funding available through our capital programme to enable a home for 4 young people to be online over the course of the summer. That will dramatically change their lives, and as they move on to better accommodation, then their spaces will be filled by other young people. Might be small numbers, but will change their lives and will begin to chip away at that massive backlog of people in bed and breakfast and temporary accommodation. And Leader, that is a massive mountain we've got to climb. We have a growing bed and breakfast and temporary accommodation crisis in the city. It's a crisis often brought to ground by stuff beyond our control, by government changes in legislation, where we're being asked to pick up the pieces. In fact, we're not even being asked, it's just being left to us to do. In order to give more options to the council and to accelerate delivery of new accommodation in this place, I'm pleased to announce that I've agreed that the council renew its registered provider status. This will mean that we can increase the amount of affordable housing we own, and I look forward to briefing you further on this in the future as we seek to accelerate affordable housing delivery, not only through new build, but through other innovative ways of action. But Leader, when we build new homes, we want them to be as environmentally friendly as possible. I'm pleased that in our previous administration, I was able to carve out an Eco Homes Fund as part of the Plan for Homes Investment Fund. We have always anticipated that the innovative energy sprung development at King's Tamerton could be a key recipient of this, but that's still pipeline. So today I'm pleased to announce that the first allocation will be going to a low-carbon, affordable development in your own ward at the former North Prospect Library site, which is being brought forward by Plymouth Community Homes. This investment is the final piece in the funding mix, and it will enable it to happen. Because of our investment, we will unlock the stalled site and enable 8 affordable homes on one of our Plan for Home sites, at the same time as making them cheaper to run for the future tenants and help tackle the climate emergency. As well as the number of homes we have in Plymouth, their quality also matters to us. I'm really pleased that Tom will be talking a bit later about a substantial new retrofit programme for affordable homes. And in addition to that, I would like to announce that we'll be shortly adding £2,813,781 to the capital programme for the provision of disabled facilities grants during this year. This will help people to enjoy a better quality of life and stay in their own homes for longer, treating people with disabilities with dignity. Leader, moving on to something different. You might remember that in 2020 we launched our 5-year cooperative strategy after more than a year of engagement with the cooperative movement. We were the first local authority to do this. In the time since we started work on that, everything's changed a lot. We're now in a post-COVID, post-Brexit world with a cost of living crisis. I'm pleased to announce that we will be reinvigorating our work to support cooperative development to tackle the issues that we face as a society in an economically sustainable way. And as part of this, we'll be working to renew our strategy, which will be launched next July on International Cooperatives Day. And on the same theme, and supporting our ambitions on tackling the climate emergency and on building a green economy, I would like to announce that the focus on investment from the Inclusive Economy Fund from now on will be on green-blue cooperative economy. We want to be innovative in our approach, and details will be released shortly. We hope to have a potential investment of at least £150,000 lined up by the end of this municipal year. And so if any of you are out there in the cooperative world looking at green and blue actions, please come and talk to us. And we are looking at ways we can ramp up this work and the funding available in order to meet our commitments to the people of Plymouth. Thank you, Leader.
Well, that's quite a few. Brilliant. Thank you, Chris. And stay quiet again if that's what happens when you do. Brilliant. Thank you so much. I'm going to ask Sally Cresswell if she's got something.
I'm going to be very brief. I've got 2 that I want to talk about. Leader, the first one is visits to various settings that I've been to, and I've been delighted to visit a number of settings since being in my portfolio position. Many thanks for the invitations. I expect to be visiting many more in the autumn term, but I'd just like to specifically mention Mission Mammoth Steamfest 2023. I can talk about this at length, but I won't. Very enthusiastic. It's actually a STEAM, in this case, stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, the Arts, and Maths. So you've got the creative element in it. And it's a partnership led by Plymouth, Building Plymouth, and it's in partnership again with the Box and the Arts University Plymouth. Now, this event actually took place the week commencing the 26th of June. I went along to the first opening, and these are STEM and creative experiences, which are all actually about raising aspiration, opportunities, and attainment for our children. Over the week, something like 514, in fact, 514 year 5 and 6 children were involved, and 81 construction professionals were also involved who volunteered their own time. And it was an absolutely fabulous, fantastic event. And the second thing I want to make an announcement on is about school attendance. And the school attendance campaign is due to be launched in in time for the new term in September. And we've been further refining our Plymouth attendance strategy. And I'm going to say this one thing. Good school attendance is actually everyone's business and it's in all our interests. And I look forward to speaking at greater length about this at future Cabinet meetings. Thank you very much, Leader.
That's great. Thank you very much, Sally. And that last one is particularly important, I think. So we'll look forward to hearing more about that in September. So, Tom, do you have anything? I think somebody said you did.
I do. Thank you, Leader. A couple of announcements from me today which cover both sides of my portfolio. So first of all, building on Councillor Penberthy's previous reference to the decarbonisation of housing, I'm pleased to announce that the Council has been awarded £7.1 million to deliver thermal insulation improvements within our city's social housing. This grant's going to be shared between both Live West and Plymouth Community Homes. Buildings is one of Plymouth's biggest sectors for emitting greenhouse gas emissions, just after transport, making up about 30% of the city's totals. So it's really important that retrofitting is a key part in our progress towards net zero. But there are also many other wider benefits to this investment, which are particular priorities for our administration. We're talking about 750 social properties, many of which will be home to people struggling with the cost of living crisis. And they should save approximately £300 a year from their rocketing heating bills as a result of this investment. Part of the grant will also be spent on controlling airflow and reducing damp and mould issues, which we know can have health implications. And the funding will also offer a significant boost for our Green Jobs and Economy pledge, which the Leader touched upon earlier. Progress has been made already since May. Live West and PCH are now finalising their project delivery teams and procurement contracts, and I'm really pleased that they're already carrying out engagement works with tenants who live in each of the households that have been selected. These extensive works will be undertaken within the next 2 years. Next, on to everyone's favourite topic, grass cutting. At the beginning of this administration, based on feedback from residents and councillors, I identified 3 priorities for this summer. 1, safety at high-risk junctions, to look after people out and about travelling, but also our own staff. 2, looking after play parks, so that families have pleasant areas for recreation. And 3, just going to paper here, because my laptop's just run out of battery. And thirdly, making sure that we reiterate public engagement on the benefits for biodiversity of wildflower meadows. And I'm pleased to say that work has occurred on all 3 of these since May. So one example of this is that we've purchased additional flail decks for ride-on mowers and flail heads for pedestrian mowers. Without getting too technical, this is a different type of cutting rotation, better suited for addressing long grass. And this is something that's been really welcomed by teams across Plymouth City Council working on this. You may well know that already Plymouth City Council has established a separate cemeteries team for grass cutting, and earlier this year I asked officers to explore the feasibility of a similar approach for inside play parks, which would therefore increase the regularity of cuts beyond what we do citywide. They are currently attempting to do this, but obviously there are challenges within the existing budget constraints that we've inherited from the previous administration. That being said, I am hopeful that communities will notice improvements this summer, and we will be evaluating the trial and creating a full business case for next year's grass cutting season. Finally, the next higher risk highways verge cut is scheduled to commence from today. That will take approximately 2 weeks, dependent on weather conditions, and this follows a change in process to use full traffic management to ensure all of our crews are safe and compliant. Thank you.
Terrific. Thanks very much indeed, Tom, for that. Mary, have you got anything for us?
Thank you, Leader. I'd like to report that we held the first task force meeting, the dental task force, on Friday, and it consisted of senior representatives from the council, cross-party councillors, NHS officers, and 2 of the largest dental providers, NHS dental providers in the city, which was Live Well South West and the Dental School. We also had 2 of the 3 local MPs present in the room, and the third one had sent a representative. So it was really good. We were able to look at proactive steps so that we can work smarter together and to make a difference to services and, importantly, to people's lives. So we came up with various ideas. They've gone away. They're now gone away to do all their background work, etc. Locally, we're going to be working to see how the dental school, the dental social enterprise and the Live Well system can work together better to smooth a few things out there. We have the officer from One Devon going away, scratching her head and having a good thought, because of course it's a new portfolio to her. She's only had it since April, so it's a real opportunity to have that blank piece of paper in front of her and do some work. And last but not least, the MPs are going to think about how they can work with government, because there is a new NHS dental plan being formed, and they're going to work to see how, when that's going to come into place and how they can work with that. So very successful first meeting. I mean, it lasted a little bit longer than what I thought, but a lot came out of it. I think everybody went out of the room feeling we'd got somewhere. And that to me has got to be worthwhile. And then we haven't set a date, but September for the next meeting. And I'm expecting a big comeback as to where we're going and positive from that. So thank you, Leader.
That's smashing, Mary. Thank you very much. That's all good news. I hope that's the start of something quite major on that. So I'm going to move on now from cabinet announcements and updates to administration priorities update, which I'm doing. Now look, this report's pretty amazing. I know everybody's read it, but what's really good about it, it goes through the priorities for this administration, and each section has got who's responsible politically, who's responsible in terms of staffing, a little bit of background, and then it's also got, of course, accelerated actions with what we've done and what we're going to do. The bit with Chris Penberth, his stuff didn't have any we haves, but he's just announced a load of we wills today. So he's more than caught up there. I think he's now in pole position. I just wanted to make sure that people really sort of understood what we're trying to do here. So we said we would hit the ground running as administration, and I think it's probably fair to say that we've done that. Mark, in his report, hinted that a lot has been achieved in his sphere in 2 months in terms of the priority. That's a real cast iron example of we said we did, I think. So we've hit the ground running. We did the corporate plan last time we were here, which a lot of new administrations, let me tell you, haven't done yet. So it's really important to say, in terms of the officers, have been helping us enormously in trying to get off to a flying start, off a standing start, really. So we've renewed the council's commitment to achieving net zero by 2030. I mean, don't forget the government's ambition is 2050, which is, crazy. Chris talked about housing just now, but we are trying to see what we can release to get house building going again. We've got a review of that underneath. Mary's talked about dentistry, so I won't mention that again. We've don't forget, we've got work done with the University Hospital Plymouth NHS Trust, which has realised a new community diagnostics facility has been secured for Colin Campbell Court, and we hope to push on from there in due course about a hub. I mean, that don't underestimate just how difficult that piece of work was, by the way. Mark talked about potholes and defects in the road system, so I won't go over that again. But we've got a real conversation going on now about the opportunities of the Celtic Array. One of the things that we talked about in our manifesto was about our perfect position as far as net zero jobs is concerned. So there is a lot of work we can do in that space. We attended, Tracy and I, a meeting last week. Was it only last week? It was, wasn't it? Last Friday, with Great South West, talking about the Celtic Array opportunities and what might be in it for all of us down this way. But we're going to work with stuff in South Yard as well at the in the City Deal area to try and get alignment of businesses who are working in that field. I mean, there's lots of opportunities. It really is very exciting. And in fact, we're going to do some work with the City Business Park in due course on green jobs as well. And they will be able to capitalise on green technologies. We said in there as well that we wanted to work with the police on tackling crime and antisocial behaviour. It's a big issue for the local community, as you know. It's one of our top priorities. And I've met already, again, Tracy and I met with Will Kerr, the new Chief Constable of Devon and Cornwall Constabulary, to talk about those issues. And we've agreed that we're going to meet on a regular basis to keep talking about that. So, it's brilliant. And what we're going to do is not just talk about these things, we're going to measure these things. So another announcement that Chris will be making probably next time, hopefully, will be around that whole piece around performance and how we measure it. So that, we're actually showing you how we are making progress. And those metrics and that performance framework will be coming through the scrutiny process in September, I think. Okay, so that's really all I need to do on that. There's recommendations which are on page 14, which is to note the actions and planned accelerated actions which are in the depth of the report, and to ensure that the arrangements are put in place to the progress and the monitoring as I've just reported. So can I see all those in favour of those two recommendations, please? Thank you very much, that's agreed. So I can now move on to item number 9, which is commissioning of resettlement support service, formerly the Refugee Integration and Support Service. This will be, I think, Chris, you're leading on this? Yes, Chris, over to you.
Thank you, Lido. And firstly, we've changed the name from Refugee Integration Service to Refugee Support Service. Interestingly, my flatmate has moved from another part of the UK to Plymouth, and we're not talking about how they integrate into Plymouth. They moved here and we're helping them to settle. So actually talking about a resettlement support service is much more appropriate, and it's a good first start. Plymouth has been designated a dispersal city for asylum seekers under the 1999 Immigration and Asylum Act, and we've got a long and proud history of accepting and settling refugees and asylum seekers. In fact, dating long before that act, you look at the history of Plymouth and the box will tell you, we are a city of immigration and emigration, and we have always been thus. So it's not a surprise we remain that today. The services we offer play a vital role helping recent arrivals into Plymouth to navigate their way through the cultural and organisational systems, enabling them to resettle, connect, and become part of the city in a really positive way, making their aspirations ones that they can meet and being part of our community. Many refugees undergo traumatic experiences, both in their home countries and during their journeys to reach their new country of residence, as well as during the process of gaining status. And on arrival here, they can often experience barriers, and I know Tracy and I have talked often about the lack of legal support. That's something I will continue to bang on about, but poor housing conditions, a lack of access to education and to employment opportunities. And I know we've got lots of organisations in Plymouth who are busy trying to do the best they can, quite often on charitable funding. But this business case recommends approval for the recommissioning of our previous refugee integration service. This supports the smooth resettlement and integration of people with refugee status or similar into our community, and is a real important part of the economic infrastructure of a lot of our voluntary community sector organisations in this field. To give you some idea of scale, there are approximately 350 asylum seekers living in Home Office commissioned dispersal accommodation at any one time in Plymouth, and those numbers are creeping up. Once an asylum seeker receives a positive decision on their status to remain in the UK, they're entitled to rent and can access other statutory housing assistance. They can also get a job for their very first time. I'm really pleased that many of the refugees that gain status in Plymouth choose to stay in our city. And over the past 20 years, we have a burgeoning and vibrant community comprising of many different nationalities that has already developed and is well integrated. That is why, in addition to the recommendations on the paper, I want to add another one. Because as a council that believes in the power of cooperation, we believe in doing with, not doing to. And so the additional recommendation that I would like to add is that providers must evidence co-production and co-delivery being right at the heart of the service, with local providers and those with lived experience having a clear voice woven through both delivery and management of this service. Leader, this is a really important recommissioning. It will make a difference to the city, and I believe it will add to the vibrant tapestry of the Plymouth family that we already have here in Plymouth and which is developing year on year. Thank you.
Well, as usual in your introduction, you leave very little room for doubt or for questions, but yeah, Emma, are you here for this one as well? Okay, so it's Kate's paper, but you're doing the biz. So, are there any questions at all for Emma? We're okay. See, I knew he'd do it to you. He always does it. He always does. He always. Huh? Do you have anything that you'd like to add to what Chris has said, Emma?
Yes, thank you, Leader. So this service is jointly funded by Community Connection, Strategic Commission and NHS Devon Integrated Care Board. And we will take an asset-based approach to provide help and support with access to housing, improved English language skills, increased self-sufficiency via employment and community integration. We will also contribute towards improved community cohesion within the city and support other organisations to become more culturally aware. So we're really intending, and I think Councillor Penberthy has summed this up beautifully, to continue to work really collaboratively with our provider partners and shaping and co-designing the final service description and specification, building on the successes that we've already had, but learning from what works and what doesn't work with our current provision, along with any required changes that reflect our current migration patterns and our latest legislative requirements. I knew I'd get stuck with that. We've already participated as a city in several Home Office managed resettlement schemes, which have enabled a safe passage for many of the most vulnerable people fleeing conflict and persecution. These include the Syrian Vulnerable Persons Scheme, the Afghan Citizens Resettlement Scheme, and Homes for Ukraine. And this service will support all of these communities to resettle regardless of their means of arrival in our city.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, I think we're pretty up on this now, aren't we? Thank you, Emma, very much. So, did everybody get that third recommendation? Yeah, I'll just in case. Providers must evidence co-production and co-delivery is right at the heart of the service, with local providers and those with lived experience having a clear voice woven through delivery and management of the service. So that's all kind of clear, right? So I'm going to put those three recommendations to you en bloc. All those in favour? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you very much indeed for that. Are you staying around for the next one? Yeah, I thought you might. Well done on that. Now, we've got some part two business, potentially. Now, what we like to do with the next one, which is all about the awarding of a contract, or rather the preparation of the awarding of the contract. There's stuff in part 2 which Cabinet members have had access to and have read, and will be the basis upon which the decision they will make. But we won't go into part 2 to make the decision, we'll make the decision in part 1, having read the stuff in part 2. Is that okay? That's not too confusing, is it? That's all clear. Good. Yeah, for the thousands of people watching, part 2 is basically a sort of exempt business thing where some stuff might be commercial and confidential and that, so we can't let people see that at this point in the cycle of decision making. So it's just, we'll do all the business as openly as we can, and that's the way we normally like to do stuff. Sometimes we can't, but on this occasion we can do that. So the next item then is options for future delivery of extra care housing and social inclusion. I think, Mary, you're taking this one, aren't you? Yeah.
Thank you, Leader. This is a business case for the option about the future delivery of extra care housing and social inclusion. Extra care housing and social inclusion supports residents of Plymouth to be able to live independently for longer without the need to move prematurely into more expensive and inappropriate social and nursing care. Basically, we want them to be able to carry on in social activities that support their mental health and their well-being. The extra care housing support service offers the offer that the local authority has is meeting its statutory needs to provide care and support for people. Without sufficient provision in place, there is a risk that the needs will be unmet, and this will increase demands on housing, support and care services. Through the commissioning approach, services will work cooperatively with partners such as LiveWell and the voluntary sector to serve the best interests of the community, including increased training to support people to live independently for longer, and also to support people living independently and for longer by themselves and with relatively community support, especially with dementia. And that to me is one of those important things, that we keep people in our communities and as a valued member of our communities for longer. Thank you, Chair.
So I've brought with me Hannah Shaw, Commissioning Officer, who authored the report, and Joe Green, who is Hannah's manager, because these are the guys who've done the really hard work behind this. I get to do the jazz hands bit, but they've done the hard work.
Okay, and you're all tooled up if we've got any impertinent questions to ask you. Ready? Yeah? Good, okay. Has anybody got any questions? Oh, yeah, sorry. Emma, is there anything you or your colleagues would like to add to what Councillor Aspinall has already said?
There is, thank you, Leader, and there are no tricky words in this one, and I know a word I can't read. So we are proposing to procure new contracts for both extra care provision and social inclusion within all our current 7 extra care schemes. And that will include a core care service for all tenants, self-directed support for individual assessed care needs, and social inclusion for all tenants. And we intend to hold market engagement sessions to support and encourage collaborative and cooperative bidding from our providers. We do recognise, and it's highlighted in the business case, that demand for housing with care provision is going to increase over the next 10 to 12 years. And this is reflected through the population data, which predicts an increase of our older population of 27% from 2020 to 2035. So given this business case allows for the potential to build on and continue to build on the extra care housing stock in the city through the proposed contract term, which means we can flex the contract to meet growing demand, as well as enabling older people to continue to live independently. An overwhelming feedback from residents, and the team have been spending a lot of time out with residents, is that social inclusion is a really critical service as part of this provision, helps them to move into the schemes, feel settled and make them feel welcomed and at home. So as part of this, though, we do need to continue to provide the current service while we do the commissioning work. So we're recommending that the current provider continues to provide the service for the next 8 months while we get on with the re-procurement.
Anything for you to add, Hannah? Joe? No? Okay, any questions on this? Chris?
Not so much a question, but a comment, just because it's easy to say, why is Mary doing that, this, not me? We're going to build it, and then she'll look after it. But I wanted to assure people that within Plan for Homes, existing and as we take forward to Plan for Homes 4, we will be explicitly looking at make sure we have enough supported housing in our pipelines to meet demand, and we're already in discussions about that.
Lovely. Well, do you know what? That wasn't a question that had occurred to me, but I'm glad you raised it, because it isn't just about the hard stuff. It's the soft stuff as well that matters with this. So that's a very important point. Right. Well, and the other thing which was interesting, now like we did with the Alliance contract, where we had like I don't know, is it 40 organisations, something ridiculous like that? Is this the sort of thing you're doing with this? Is having a number of what would normally be competitors being encouraged to work together? So presumably that means we get better value that way, does it?
That's the aim, absolutely. We haven't got that many, fortunately, for this group, but we would want them to be working collaboratively in the best interests.
Okay, so in which case, I think we'll go to the vote. I think we'll do that because you've got enough to do with this. We can't waste any more time. By the way, thank you for the enormous amount of time you've already spent on this, and no doubt will until we finally sign it off. By the way, when do you think we'll be in that sort of situation?
We're aiming for new contracts to go live at beginning of April next year.
Okay. These things take a lot of time, don't they? You think it's like that, but it's actually, there's a lot of preparation goes into all this stuff. And of course, when you're dealing with particularly vulnerable people, it's really important that you get these things right. So, that's important. Okay, so the recommendations are in the papers. I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind agreeing the recommendations. Now, there's 4 of them, and I'm going to put them en masse to you. So all of those in favour of the 4 recommendations, please show. Any against? None? Yes, carried. Thank you. Good luck. And we'll hear from you again sometime before April next year. Okay. Well, that would appear to be the end of the meeting. I think that's right. That's not bad, actually. A little bit later than we thought, but, we had a lot to announce today. And actually, we've done quite a lot today. When I looked at the agenda, I thought, there's only 11 items on. I was thinking, oh, no. But then you hear about what everybody's up to, and it's quite amazing already, isn't it? I'm quite content with this. And of course, what we heard today is that we've earned millions of pounds in grants, and we're also going to spend millions of pounds doing good things. So what's not to like at the day in the office? Thanks to everybody for attending, and I hope it means that our work experience students will still be here tomorrow and haven't been bored to death. But this really was an exciting day at the office, believe me. Take care and see you next time.